How do you know if you are supposed to help somebody? I know as a Christian, as a parent, as a spouse, as a friend, as a neighbor, you want to be there for the person in need. But when they ask to borrow money, or they ask for our help, or they need us to bail them out, or they need us to be there for them, are we supposed to do it or not? If you're anything like me, you've struggled with this question time and time again, wondering, is this the right thing to do? Am I supposed to just be there for people whenever they reach out? Or is there another side to this that I need to consider in making the decisions of whether or not to actually help them? Well, have you ever considered that directly helping somebody, no matter what, just because they ask, may not always be the best approach? That we are to use discretion on a case-by-case basis to figure out whether or not we should help somebody, and to get that discretion, we need to rely on God through prayer. That we should, in other words, pray before helping somebody out whenever they ask us. Well, there's actually 3 reasons why applying this principle of praying beforehand can help clear up the confusion and let us know whether or not we should move forward and give that helping hand, or let the person know that we are not going to be helping in this. The first is that not every battle is your battle. We see, for example, when they come to arrest Jesus, he's about to be brought before the courts and mocked and beat and actually hung on a cross to die. At that moment, Peter takes out his sword and cuts off the ear of the soldier who's come to arrest Jesus. Now, if I'm getting arrested and you jump in to help me out, hopefully I'm not ever getting arrested, but I would be like, you know what, you're my best friend in the world right now. But that is not what Jesus did. He actually instead picks up the soldier's ear, puts it back on him, and tells Peter, pick up your sword. Peter, this is a battle that is about to take place, but it's not your battle. It's not your place to fight this battle for me. Peter meant well. He was trying to help out Jesus, and you may be meaning well, trying to help out this person in need. But if it's not the battle that God has called you to fight, and you do take your strength, your money, your energy, your resources, and time and focus it in that area, then I have a question for you. Who's going to take up the battle that God did call you to fight? So God didn't create you to just exist on this planet. He has a destiny for you. And what is destiny? It is a lifetime of fulfilling the will of God. So you do that by stringing 1 decade of your life upon the next in the will of God. Well, how do you live a decade in the will of God? By living this year in the will of God. How do you do that this year? You do it this month. How do you do it all 30 days? You do it today. So if today you are focused on a battle to help someone out that is outside of God's will for you, it could be a good battle, but it might not be God's battle for you, then you are distracted. Question, who will then fulfill your purpose? Who will then go out and fight that battle that God did send you out to fight today? Well, there's one of 2 options. Either somebody else who is going to be distracted from their purpose is going to go and fight that battle, which leaves the other one open, or nobody. Second question, when you die, do you want to tell God about all the battles you fought and what you did and what you gave and what you accomplished and who you helped? And God say, yeah, but what about the people I asked you to help? What about the battles I asked you to fight? In other words, we should pray before helping somebody to make sure it is somebody God wants us to help. Now, the second reason why praying before helping somebody out is a wise principle of life is because of entitlement. You see, God speaks about entitlement in the Bible, but we often overlook the verse because of the example that he's using to communicate the principle. And what you and I are about to do is look at the principle behind the example. It's in Proverbs chapter 19, verse 19, which says, hot-tempered people must pay the penalty. If you rescue them once, you will have to do it again. Now, often we read this verse and go right past it because he's talking about angry people, right? No, he is talking about entitlement. He is saying if somebody does something wrong, there is a consequence that they have to pay. If you go and rescue them from that consequence, if you go to the principal and take their side instead of allowing the teacher to do what they need to do in the classroom, if you go to the jail and bail them out, if you pay for that emergency because they didn't save their money, if you go along with their victim story and how everyone's out to get them and it's everyone else's fault and you coddle them through that, then what are you going to produce? You're going to produce somebody who's going to need money again, who's going to need a bailout again, who's going to need somebody to tell them that they're right and everybody else is wrong again. You see, the Bible's not talking about angry people. It's talking about people doing something stupid that they have to pay the consequences for, and then telling you not to bail them out of those consequences because the consequences are a system of life that God has ordained in order to teach people the ways of wisdom. This is why he says in the New Testament, don't be fooled. God cannot be mocked. Whatever someone plants is what he will will harvest. So do people get in binds and need help? Yes. Does the Bible tell us to help, to give of ourselves, to be there, to be a neighbor to everyone around us? Yes. But it also tells us don't go out into a society or in your own home and create entitlement. Now, the third reason why praying before helping somebody is so important is because you may save them from a struggle God wants them to go through. In James chapter 1, verses 2 and 4, it says, "Count it all joy when you fall into various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces patience. But let patience have its perfect work so that you will be perfect and complete, lacking nothing." So take, for example, someone who is starting a church. My wife calls these pop-up churches because in the morning you have to run and get all the stuff out of the storage and bring it to the house or to the facility you're renting and pop it all up before everyone gets there. Do church like it's normal. Everyone leaves, you smile, shake their hands, and when they leave, you pop it all down and bring it all back to storage. And all my church planning people know what I'm talking about. Well, let's just say it's in your heart to buy that church a building. You want to be a blessing, you want to give them this money, and that's great. And God may tell you to do that. That is fantastic. Go and do it. But just make sure that God is telling you to do that, because the grind of popping that church up and the endurance that those church planters are going to have to go through, the pressure of what it is to get that facility going and work with no finances and build that church from scratch is so grueling and so difficult that it's going to produce a patient endurance in them that when they become the mature church that God has ordained for them to be, those pastors will be ready to handle it. If you go out there, even in the goodness of your heart, and do something good that is not from God and save them from that struggle, you could put them in a position too soon, and whenever the pressures hit, they crack. In other words, there's something to be said about bootstrapping an entrepreneurial endeavor. There's something to be said about paying your own student loans off. But if you keep saving that person from the struggle that God wants them to go through in order to grow, they will never become who God intended for them to become. So praying before you help somebody to make sure it is what God wants you to do in this situation is always a wise way of going about it. And speaking of wise prayers, I have found my life take shape in reality based on what I've been praying about and have discovered over time the 8 wisest prayers you can pray. I share all of them with you in this video right here, and I look forward to catching each other there together.